So good evening and welcome. I'm Natasha Spada, the Chair of the Needham Planning Board. I'm calling the October 21st, 2024 Planning Board meeting to order. The meeting of the Planning Board is being conducted in a hybrid manner consistent with current state regulations and is being recorded. As a reminder, this meeting is being broadcast to the town's YouTube channel and also via Zoom, and it's being recorded for publication, later viewing, and administrative purposes. All materials for this meeting are available on the town's website, needhamma.gov. So I'll call the roll for the record. When I call your name, please say you're present. Paul Alpert,
Present.
Adam Block,
Present.
Artie Crocker,
Present.
Justin McCullen,
Present.
and Lee Newman and Alex Clear here with us. So the agenda today is a discussion of special town meeting warrant articles, and then a report from the planning director and board members. So why don't we begin with the discussion of the special town meeting warrant article? Do we want to call Glenn up, or would you like to lead?
No, I think we probably should just call Glenn up to discuss his motion to amend.
Okay. So
Okay.
Glenn, do you want to
Slide share.
slide your chair over?
Okay. Okay. So I sent you guys the slides. I
Can
think,
you
earlier.
say your name and?
Sorry, Glenn Mulno, precinct, what am I?
It's on your, it's on your thing.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
It's on your-
Aye. So I believe I sent everyone the slides and they were, I don't know if you saw that I had notes in there, which is what I plan to read tonight. But basically that is what I plan to share with the town meeting tonight. With the focus on, putting a cap on the special permit part, leaving the FAR at 1.7, leaving the fourth floor. The numbers that we heard, that 318,000 square feet, and then of course hypothetically, you could have at 1,000 square foot per unit up to 318 units. Of course, that number could fluctuate depending on the size of the units and everything else that goes on. Neighbors, of course, being really upset about that, but also looking at Highland and West in the train tracks and also West and Hillside. The proximity of those intersections being extremely close, I feel is a real danger and a risk to, allow just an uncapped number of units to be built in there and potentially be traveling out. Looking at potential mitigation, there's really not a lot of space you could move those driveways. They're already, the two driveways that are there are sort of up against the edges on either side. And the only way you could move them would be to move them closer to the West and Highland intersection. Which really, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. Looking at, how would we put a cap on that? As you know, it came and I, looked at a cap of that would equate to about 213, 214 units, which was 50 units per acre, up from the by right of 44 per acre, which is specified in the plans now. Talking to you guys, it seemed like at least a potential reasonable compromise to that would be 53 per acre, which would end up being 227 units. 227 units is 38 more, which equates to a 20% increase in the number of units from the by right of 189. To me, that feels like a reasonable compromise. It also feels like a very still an attractive number for a developer to come in and say, well, you can get 20% more units potentially. You still have the 1.7 FAR, which gives you a ton of flexibility. You also have the potential of the fourth floor. So I feel like that is reasonable for the neighborhood, reasonable for the intersections that are there, reasonable for the developer. It just feels like a reasonable win-win-win, if you will. And there is the neighborhood component of, the neighbors were concerned about the amount of traffic that might cut through down to Morton Street, which one of the driveways exits pretty much right across from. There's no stopping a street from being used as a cut through, no reasonable way. So it really is just trying to say, maybe we can slow some of that down a little bit with a cap as well. So I think that's the 2-minute summary.
Great, so let's start going around the table. Thank you for that, Glenn. Artie.
I do believe that considering that the concern of the neighborhood. And then considering the fact that the developer was perfectly reasonable in having a cap on the 1.3 FAR, it's perfectly reasonable to think that he'd be okay with a cap on the 1.75. I do understand that it limits, let's say, quote, flexibility. But I'd hate to see the possibility of 280, 300 units going in there. And if they come in with some type of a traffic study that says, oh, it's perfectly fine, then, perhaps we start to feel as though pressure to then have to approve it. And then I stated before that, the makeup of the board then is not gonna be the makeup of the board now. So I think we have to decide what's the best thing for the balance of the community and the neighborhood now with what we have going on now. So though I would have liked to go a little bit more than 227, close to 240. I think it's perfectly fine, again, having a cap. Again, it gives them plenty of flexibility. I want the fourth floor. I think the fourth floor has a certain attraction to it. So I do want that to be developed that way. But at the same time, we want to make sure there's plenty of space to push back. If they want to slide back the fourth floor depth on the side, this gives them a lot of architectural options to have some really fantastic units in there. I can see a lot of people wanting to move into that with that fourth floor, the 227 units, whatever it is. That'll give them something a lot more than the 1.35, in my opinion. And though it's a special permit, they have to come before us. I don't see that as being a major impediment to them wanting to do the 1.75. And if we're putting a cap on it, we give some protection, which, to be honest with you, I don't think the special permit necessarily gives enough protection to put people's minds at ease. And I think that's worth something. I mean, and I don't live near there now. I used to live down there, Spring Road. I was closer to there, of course, but I knew a lot of people around there. And I think there's a lot of reasonable people around there. And it's a great neighborhood, and it's a great location for this project. We just have to make sure there's a balance. And we have the chance now to make sure that we put that balance in place. So when it goes to the town meeting floor, and they can see that we're taking a lot of things into consideration. And that, plus the fact that this whole 1.3, 1.7 came to us through the summertime. And even though it had the legal notices to what we had to do in our discussions and so forth, it didn't go through the same vetting process as the rest of the MBTA Community Act. So taking a lot of things into consideration, I think it's our responsibility to correct something that we didn't. At least I stuck my felt. I personally didn't see this then, but I see it now, and I think it's our responsibility to do something about it now. So that's where I am. Though I would like a little bigger cap. If this is what it is, 227, then I'm voting in favor of it.
Okay. Adam.
So, I understand the concerns that residents have. I've lived around the corner from there at the bottom of West Street for many years. When the site was active, it's not active now, as we know, and it hasn't been in years. And any development there will seem more than what it currently is. I get that. I understand that 1.3 FAR was set at a time before, when the representative from the developer had said that they could, 189, yielding 189 as a cap then, which was not our original intent. But it was a cap of about 20% of 22%, 23% from the 243 that was initially proposed in our zoning bylaw. And he had said at 189 units, that could potentially be a viable project. That took into account, for instance, the 12.5% affordability requirement in our account, the stretch energy code, all of which makes construction vastly more expensive than it otherwise had been. But it was before the conversation of our requirements and restrictions for the garage, and I understand what Tim Sullivan, the attorney for the developer, had said specifically was that it may be a viable project, but all of these requirements are these three that I mentioned are going to really push them or any other land user, to a special permit scenario. The planning board methodically considered a cap. We rejected it for the special permit for several important reasons. One, because we would be setting it arbitrarily. Whether it's 51, 62, 85, we're picking numbers over the air, and that is fundamentally terrible public policy. And I just think that that's in itself reasons to not do it, and I'll tell you why. First of all, we either, as a planning board, understand the responsibilities bestowed to us by the state statute. And maybe, and I've expressed for years, you know, to Katie King and to Town Council Chris Heath, that the board clearly needs training in a number of areas, and perhaps special permits still one of them, because some of us on the board don't understand the powers of the special permit and the extent of the mitigation that's possible. And I think that in reality, I'm satisfied that the special permit authority allows a developer to come to the plate with a project, and if they come in with 285 units or 275 units, and they demonstrate the project works for them, but it also presents challenges in the infrastructure that can't be reasonably mitigated, if that's really the standard, then yes, part of our mitigation could be to reduce it down to 250.
Excuse me, Adam, I just want to make sure, we have to get out of here 7:30, we have two more, but you said you had 3 points. I want to make sure you got through all three.
Thank you. So I'm working through it.
Okay,
So I think that that we have the special permit authority, which does give us sufficient authority to mitigate all of these challenges that some worry about, which if is a valid worry, I get it. I also think that, what was interesting is if we did work on a cap, 180 units per floor is about 60 units a floor times 4 is about 240. Give or take, it's not empirical. There's other mechanical stuff that would go on a roof. And that would, and that would take up size and space on the roof. So it's not perfectly 240 units. I get that, but that roughly 240 number is close to the 247 that we initially considered as part of the by right condition for this site originally. So I think that if we were to cap it, it would have to be based on a reasonable rationale that would make it viable. And I do believe that if we arbitrarily set a cap without knowing empirically the impact on the market, which Justin and I have talked about for over a year, because Hone came back and identified the site as a non-viable, a site that would turn over, this is exactly why. But I'm pretty sure that if we cap the thing, that we're going to continue to see a blight in that area of a building that won't move and it won't turn. Maybe I'm wrong, it's possible, I'm certainly wrong enough. But I understand that the market conditions today, with all of these expenses, because of the affordability requirement, which we all accept as an important public good, also good, strong public good with our stretch energy code that the town itself had adopted, and in addition to the requirements of the garage, it forces this project with too few units to be, unviable, and we'll have successfully rendered this site light.
thank you, Adam, appreciate it. Paul?
I basically agree with Artie. I mean, we originally didn't have a cap on either the by right or the special permit. And when the numbers worked out and we found out that at a 1.3 FAR at 1,000 square feet per unit, you wound up with 243 units. I freaked and I said, hey, wait a minute. They came to us saying that they wanted 189 units. And that's where we got the 44 units per acre to get us to the 189 by right. If we take a 1.7 FAR at 1,000 feet per unit, we get 318, I think, is the number. That's a huge number of units. I mean, if you gotta figure an average of 2 people per unit, you're talking about 636 people living at that space, which is a very difficult traffic area, which is the major concern here. So I am more comfortable agreeing to having a cap on the special permit process. Artie said he would have gone up to 240 units, which is 56. I would have been okay with that. I'm very comfortable at 53. It gives some leeway for this property owner, this developer who represented to us that he could build something within this project at 189 units. And you know, I would like to see something here, 189 units, giving some leeway to get them up. 53 brings them up to 223, I think.
227.
227.
It's 38 more units.
There's 38 more
20% higher.
units, I think. I would vote in favor. I could have gone with 54, 55, but you know, I would vote in favor of it, and I think we should support the amendment. That's my feeling, and I understand what Adam's saying.
Yeah,
I understand his
yeah.
position.
Okay. Justin.
So I am. This parcel is the most developable. If everything passes here and the neighborhood plan passes, you're not gonna have anything for years. This is something that's ripe for the development. In order to move the needle, I believe that we have an obligation. To move the needle on housing stock. I think that the 4-acre lot, 4.2 acre lot has its own physics that will keep, you will not have 313 units. You could put a prison in there and not have 313 cells to be built. So there is a natural limiting carrying capacity, and it's not 313. I think when to the points of the developer saying they came and said 189 was fine, they didn't come to say 189. We said it was 189 is fine, and they said yes. Then we changed some of the requirements for the screening and all of that other stuff. We didn't go back to them and say, hey, factor this into your decision, blah, blah, blah. The traffic is going to be horrible no matter what. If it stays as an abandoned lot, the traffic will be just as bad in 10 years regardless. So I think that should be taken off the table because it's going to be bad regardless. So I'm not in favor, and I believe the select board is also going to vote no. And I think that's what they're doing right now, is not to support the amendment. And I don't think we should support the amendment. I'm going for no cap. I believe that I believe the special permit process is strong enough for us to be able to make the tweaks necessary should we believe there will be an impact to the neighborhood. And we will go through the process. I believe that we went through a process just as robust. We had four public meetings on this, but one of them was public broadcast and 3 public actual meetings. We went through this. We can't be responsible if someone isn't paying attention. We go through our process, and I think there's a lot of public boards that have to that unfortunately no one pays attention to government unless it affects them. It's around and